What significance is there to the blind man identifying Jesus as the Son of David? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Luke on Walking Through the Bible.
The glory of his cross.
If you have a Bible with you, turn to Luke chapter 18. We're going to be reading from verses 35 to 43. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So Luke chapter 18, beginning at verse 35. Then it happened, as he was coming near Jericho, that a certain blind man sat by the road begging. And hearing a multitude passing by, he asked what it meant. So they told him that Jesus of Nazareth was passing by. And he cried out, saying, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And those who went before warned him that he should be quiet. But he cried out all the more, Son of David, have mercy on me. So Jesus stood still and commanded him to be brought to him. And when he had come near, he asked him, saying, What do you want me to do for you? He said, Lord, that I may receive my sight. Then Jesus said to him, Receive your sight, your faith has made you well. And immediately he received his sight and followed him, glorifying God. And all the people, when they saw it, gave praise to God. This is the third time we've come across this story, as we've studied it already in Matthew and Mark. As to the setting, critics of the Bible love to point out an apparent discrepancy between Mark and Luke. In Mark, Jesus performs this miracle while leaving Jericho, while in Luke has Jesus performing this miracle as he was coming near Jericho. Is there a contradiction? No, for our map will show us that there was a residential area known as Jericho, while the municipal part of the town was situated a little further away. So what this means is that the miracle took place while Jesus was leaving residential Jericho, but was near municipal Jericho. Luke's readers in the first century would have known this, but this fact is not as well known to modern readers, hence why people think that there is a contradiction. While Luke leaves this part out, Mark tells us that Jesus is actually traveling on the road to Jerusalem. Again, looking at our diagram, if you're on this road starting at Jericho, you're going to be heading uphill to Jerusalem. In fact, during the 14-mile or 22-kilometer journey, one would ascend 3,300 feet or 1,000 meters. That is quite the trek, but it was one that was well traveled as there was a road that people would use to do it. The climb would begin almost immediately after leaving municipal Jericho. Now, as we discussed in our study of Matthew, you'd remember that Matthew tells us that there were two blind men healed by Jesus, while Mark and Luke only mentioned one. This too isn't a contradiction because Mark and Luke's account don't preclude a second man being here. They simply don't mention him because it appears that one of them, a man who Mark identifies as Bartimaeus, seems to be the main one who speaks. This blind man, while Jesus was on the road to Jerusalem, at the time when Jesus was about to be crucified, proclaimed that Jesus was the Son of David. Multitudes were surrounding Jesus who would have heard this declaration and thus would have the opportunity to believe based on what Jesus would do. Luke, in his account of Jesus' lineage back in chapter 3, traces Jesus' lineage back to Adam, the first man. But in doing so, he had to go through King David, another man who is important in the lineage of the Messiah. For the Old Testament prophesied that the Messiah would come from the house of David. So this blind man, proclaiming who Jesus was, would point to the crowd as to who Jesus was, something that Jesus would have wanted. But along with the blind man identifying who Jesus was, he also called out pleading for mercy. What did the crowds do? Tell him to be quiet. The multitudes probably thought of Jesus as this important teacher who should not have to be bothered by this blind man, because after all, he was busy walking towards Jerusalem. The more that the crowds asked him to be quiet, however, the louder and more persistent he seemingly got. I have seen this happen when parents try to quiet their children. Instead of modeling quiet behavior for their children, they loudly tell them to quiet down, meaning that not only are the parents being more disruptive than the children, but it usually doesn't work for the children to just get louder. It doesn't work here either, as the blind man continued to cry out. Jesus then stopped and asked him what he wanted Jesus to do. As I've said in other episodes, I don't believe that Jesus was in the dark as to what this man wanted, but he wanted the blind man to express his faith and his desires, just like God requires of us in prayer. He requested that Jesus grant to him his sight. To make such a request, you must have faith in the ability of the one you're asking, and since he believed in Jesus as the Messiah, he did have the faith that would be required to have Jesus restore his eyesight. Jesus obviously had compassion on this man, for he said for the man to go his way, for his faith had made him whole. We don't always read of the faith being a prerequisite of healing, but in this case it was, for the man hadn't called out for Jesus. Jesus wasn't going to stop and heal him. Jesus was busy on the road to Jerusalem, but that didn't mean he was too busy to stop and have compassion on someone else. Once his eyesight was restored, which was immediate, the now former blind man got up and followed Jesus. It shows us yet again the faith that this man had. He didn't believe in Jesus in order to get a miracle performed on him. He truly did have faith in that once Jesus restored his sight, he got up and followed him. And when all the people saw it, they too were happy and gave praise to God. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Luke chapter 19, verses 1 to 10, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.